Hello, this is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com here with my first update to one of my commander decks from the new set coming out next week, Murders at Karlov Manor. The set is releasing on Friday, which is in about 5 days. And in this video, I want to discuss cards that are coming out that would be good for my Omnath Locus of Creation decks, both my budget and my non-budget. Here's my website, everyone, cyclesgaming.com. Check it out. The article will be up live later today. Well, so I'm pretty excited about this set. The cards look great, but what has me most excited about it is that Clue is my favorite movie. Like literally my favorite movie of all time. So funny. We watch it every year around Christmas time. My second favorite movie is probably The Big Lebowski, if anyone's wondering. And I've been really getting into detectives and mysteries lately, both reading and watching on Netflix and whatnot. So it's really exciting. I really am really happy about this set and interested to see how it plays out. And it has some really powerful cards for a variety of different decks. Today we're going to talk about 4-color Omnath and Commander and the different cards that are being released from Murders at Karlov Manor that will be good in what I think will be good in those both the budget and non-budget decks. And the way I've divided up the cards, I have should be included, could be included, and might could be included. For those of you not from the South, might could is just another way of saying maybe, but probably not that likely. So we'll get started with our non-budget version of Omnath, Locus of Creation, my Landfall combo commander deck, and the cards that should be included. The first is Undergrowth Recon. Let's see if I have a bigger picture for us. It's an enchantment, 2 green, 1 colorless. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I mean, this is exactly what we want. It is a guaranteed, as long as we have a land in our graveyard, it's a guaranteed land drop every turn. It doesn't even count as our land drop, which makes it so powerful and what makes it just a strictly better Crucible of Worlds if you're playing green. So at the beginning of each of our turns, we get to put a land from the graveyard into play, which will trigger our Omnath, and conveniently that trigger is just the life gain, and so we don't need to worry about losing the mana between steps. We'll make our second land drop in our first main phase, and then we'll get the 4 mana off of Omnath's second trigger, Landfall trigger. Really powerful card. I imagine that this mythic will be pretty expensive for commander purposes alone. How do we want to abuse this? Well, our best way in our current build is using fetch lands. If we have a fetch land in our yard, that's essentially guaranteeing us 2 land drops every turn for the rest of the game. And if we have another land in hand, that's 3 land drops every turn for the rest of the game. We could also tweak the mana base to include more land destruction, Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, or the Horizon Canopied lands. I have scattered groves here for some reason. I'll need to fix that. But Horizon Canopied lands let you pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, draw a card. So we do that, and on the next turn we get it from a graveyard, put it back onto the battlefield, do it again, and so forth. So it'd be a really powerful card draw engine with this enchantment out. Like I said, it's a strict upgrade to Crucible of Worlds in a green deck, and it gives us a 7th way of playing lands from the graveyard. So really excited about this card. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the deck. Our second card from Murders at Karlov Manor that I think should be in our Omnath Locus of Creation commander deck is Case of the Locked Hothouse. It's 4 mana, 1 green, 3 colorless, and it's the new type of enchantment / saga that we are familiar with, except instead of at the beginning of each upkeep adding, or at the beginning of each turn or whenever saga's trigger, instead of adding a counter at that, we have to solve the case by achieving some sort of condition. So for 4 mana, we get the unsolved version of the case. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. That's a super powerful effect for our deck. That's exactly what we want to be doing in our landfall deck. We want to make as many land drops in a turn as possible and as often as possible. Every single turn, we want to be making 3, 4, 5 land drops if we can. 2 is our magic number, of course, to trigger Omnath's extra mana. All right, so to solve the case, to trigger the second static ability, or the final static ability, is we control 7 or more lands. That's fairly easy for us to get to by turn, I don't know, 5 or 6. So once we solve it, we get this, the second static ability says we may look at the top card of our library at any time, and we can play lands and cast creature and enchantment spells from the top of your library. So as I write in my article, I was on the fence. When I first read this card, I was like, auto include, amazing. Then I got to reading it and like, man, that's 4 mana for an effect that we can get for much less. Is that really that powerful? But then as I started thinking about it and writing about it, I realized it's like overpowered in our deck. That we are precisely the deck that wants to play this card. Through a lot of decks, by the time they have 4 mana, they probably won't have extra lands to abuse the extra land drop clause that we get for the 4 mana investment into this enchantment, but we are not those decks. We have tons of ways to bounce lands to our hand, and we play a lot of lands. So we want to be able to, we always want lands in our hand for the entire game. So we're going to be able to abuse this first clause. And then we really, really want to have ways to make extra land drops. We play 6 already, so this would give us a 7th. And that, I think, as I write in the article, I think we should judge these cases by their first clause, their first static ability, whatever it is. Is it playable for the mana investment you put into it? Does it do enough with just the first clause? I say that because there's a good chance that that's the only one you're going to get. I think for our deck, with the case of the locked hothouse, we'll probably solve the case pretty quickly, but you never know, our opponent might just kill it or exile it or something like that. So we really need to just judge the card based on the first effect that we get out of it. And for 4 mana, playing an extra land a turn is enough for our deck, because our deck, when we have our most explosive turns or turn the corner and take over a game, it's when we're making 3 and 4, 5 even land drops in a single turn. So we really want a redundant effect like this beyond what we already have. Now, if we ever do get it solved, and I think we will very frequently, it's a very, very powerful addition to our deck as well. It allows us to play lands and creatures, which we do off the top of our library. We do have ways of doing that already, but the third thing we can play off the top of the library is enchantments, which we don't have any card like that right now. And enchantments are one of our biggest engine pieces, one of our best payoff cards for Landfall. Another way that we lose with Omnath is just running out of lands. So being able to have a card that makes the library, top of our library, an extension of our hand for additional land drops is really powerful. So this card kind of does it all for us. It lets us play lands from our hand, extra lands from our hand to trigger landfall. It also allows us to make our land drops from the top of our library should we run out of lands in our hand. So this one's definitely going in. I'm pretty excited about it. Let's see, where's our next one? Aftermath Analyst. So I think we're into the could be added section. So these are the cards that I think we could find room for, depending on your current your build and what you have and what you don't have from what I've presented in my article. It could be worth testing out. This card's pretty powerful. I think for me, I'm really excited about it for the budget deck. So 1 colorless and a green for a 1/3 creature. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. The part we really care about, though, is paying a 3 colorless and a green and sacrificing it. We get to return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now, this is done at instant speed. So we would get back all of our fetch lands at the end of our opponent's turn, trigger all of our landfall shenanigans at the end of our opponent's turn, if we so choose. Untap, get to do it all again, and hopefully have a huge swing for lethal on the turn after we do this. Or we can do it in response during our turn, or after a sweeper, or before combat on our turn. I mean, there's so many, having it at instant speed gives us a lot of flexibility. Returning all land cards from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped is a very powerful effect. So, we play Splendid Reclamation already in both versions of our deck for this very reason. We get all of our fetch lands back to start over our shenanigans once they untap. We get all those landfall triggers in a single turn, so we can stack all of our triggers in a way for the most value. So this card is very powerful. It's an uncommon. I think I'll test it out in my non-budget, and if it overperforms, I might find room for it in my budget deck. The next card that I have for the now we're moving on to the might could be added, I suppose. We're done with could be added. That was the only one for my non-budget deck that could be added. Might could, we're probably not gonna find room for it. It's probably not good enough, but it's worth thinking about depending on your budget, your mana base, whatever. And that is Escape Tunnel. It's strictly better than Evolving Wilds. guarantees us 2 land drops in a turn, which is the magic number, and then comes up with some upside of being able to give a creature with power 2 or less, making it unblockable for turn. So I think it does what it says. If you maybe have a lot of the cards in my non-budget version, but the mana base is too expensive, this could be in addition to that card to put with our budget fetch lands to help us guarantee us 2 land drops in a turn, which is, as I've said, the magic number. The last card that could be included is Krenko's Buzz Crusher. I mean, I love this card. I really like it. I kind of just want to make room for it in my non-budget deck, but I'll try it out in my budget version first. 2 red, 2 colorless, 4/4 flying trample. Already great stats. They never made creatures like this when Magic first came around and when I first started playing. But that's not all. It has all this text underneath it. It says, when Krenko's Buzz Crusher enters the battlefield, for each player, destroy up to 1 non-basic land that player controls. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So some just casual land destruction, taking out our opponent's Cabal Coffers or Nykthos Shrine to Nyx or Maze of Ith or whatever problematic land they have on a 4/4 flying trample is amazing. Triggering all of our landfall triggers when we destroy our own land and go get another one. We have ways of growing it with counters, permanent counters, or just +1/+1 until end of turn. We have other shenanigans. Obviously, landfall is what we're all about, so getting that additional trigger could be enough to really turn the corner for us. And it incentivizes us to play things like Flagstones of Trakir so that we get even additional landfall triggers. We blow up our own Flagstones, end up getting 2 more lands. So I'm in the 4/4 flying trample. I mean, it's really appealing to me. It has double evasion essentially, right? I mean, the flying is clearly evasion. Trample allows it to attack through flying chump blockers. We can have turns where we'll make it into a 10/10. If we have both of these enchantments out, we'll grow it permanently and then add more counters to it. It could be up to 15/15 for a single attack. And trample allows that attack to be actually really relevant. So pretty excited about this card. Really want to try it out in the non-budget, but I'll try it out on my budget version first. It's still currently $1 right now, according to some sites. So we'll see if it goes up in price or not. It is the only rare that I'm going to talk about from my budget Omnath deck. So those are the cards I think have should, could, and might could be added to the non-budget Omnath deck. So now let's move on to the budget. I included the deck lists for both. Here's my non-budget. You can scroll down easily for my budget. So which cards should be added into the budget? Well, if you haven't guessed already, Aftermath Analyst is the first. We only have 2 ways to return lands from our graveyard in our budget build. So that's Splendid Reclamation and Perennial Behemoth, which is 5 mana. So this is a really powerful way to recur lands from the graveyard, and we need that kind of redundancy in our budget deck. The next one is Escape Tunnel. We've already talked about it. We play Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse in our budget build already, and Escape Tunnel is strictly better than those, but it gives us another fetch land that will guarantee us 2 land drops in a turn. Already talked about Krenko's Buzz Crusher and how awesome it is, so we're going to try that out in our budget deck. So those 3 should be added, and could be added. They went this way. I'm just realizing that me clicking on these pictures, my video might not be catching the different pictures I'm putting up, which would be unfortunate. They went this way is sorcery, 1 green, 2 colorless. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and then investigate. So we play a couple 3 mana spells that do more than this. So it's we play Grow from the Ashes and Rolling Regrowth. They have kind of a better upside than this one does, but I could see including it if you want some extra card draw or if you have an Artifact Matters theme. 3 mana is kind of a lot just to get a single basic land, but the extra card draw might make it worth it. Might could be added. Fey Flight and Airtight Alibi are in this list. Both are ways to protect your commander or your best creature. There are 2 enchantments. Flash, enchant creature with Fey Flight. When it enters the battlefield, the target creature gets hexproof until end of turn, and then it has +1/+0 and has flying. So that's a really powerful way to keep our commander alive or our best creature alive through targeted removal while also granted evasion for the rest of the game. So and it's only 2 mana, so I really like that. I might run that card in my budget build. I don't play too many of these types of cards in my commander's decks usually, but I might try it out. And if you like that kind of spell, if you really like being able to protect your commander, This is a budget version that will allow you to do that, as is Airtight Alibi. For additional mana, the creature gets +2/+2 and can't become suspected. I don't know how important suspected or not suspected is going to be in Commander. I have a feeling it's not going to be that big of a deal. I doubt it'll be that big of a deal in Standard, to be honest. It feels more like a limited mechanic, but we'll see. It gets hexproof until end of turn, and then it can't be suspected. And if it is suspected, it will no longer be suspected. So yeah, I mean, it's a common, it's budget. This is what you get for 3 mana. It will protect one of your creatures through targeted removal. Neither one will protect your creatures from sweepers, so keep that in mind. And that's it. Pretty excited about the set. I think we have some really powerful additions to both my budget and non-budget Omnath Locus of Creation Commander decks. Let me know in the comments what you think, which cards you're excited about, or what tweaks you want to make to your Omnath deck, or whatever Commander deck is your favorite. And like always, thanks for watching. This is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com. I'll see you on the next one.